Welcome to the Meetings Podcast, the meeting organizer's podcast source for what's new in the meetings and events industry. Meetings Podcast is a conversation with a variety of voices that looks at events, meetings, and media. Meetings Podcast is sponsored by IMEX America, America's worldwide exhibition for incentive travel, meetings, and events.
Hey, podcast listeners, this is Mike. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Today's show, we have Bruce Couch. He's a fantastic dude. Been doing presentation stuff for a long time, and I've known him a long time, actually. And let's see, I also wanted to thank IMEX America for their sponsorship. I wanted to thank Audible. You can get a free Audible book by going to audibletrial.com/meetings podcast. You get a free book. Worth going over there, and you get a free month. There are a ton of books in there to check out. Let's see what's on my Audible right here. I'll look down. I have Natural Born Heroes, and it's by Christopher McDougall. I've been listening to that, and I'm enjoying that book. I also have Deep Work by Cal Newport, which I really am enjoying. I'm almost finished with that. And so thank you again for tuning in. Thank you to sponsors, and let's get into the interview. All right, welcome back to the Meetings Podcast. This is Mike McCallan from Grass Shack Events and Media, and on today's show we have Bruce Couch. Bruce Couch is from the Bodie Group. Hi, Bruce.
Hello, how you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Your short bio is, fortunately, something went horribly wrong, and I ended up here. I like that. I liked all this when he sent it to me. I was like, okay, this is perfect. Longer version, theater plus rock and roll, photography, multi-image programmer, technical director, presentation designer, audience member, Bodie Group Incorporated. I honestly have no clue how I got here other than shedding the people I didn't want to work with and embracing those I do. Bodie Group is 7 people. We love what we do. We love our clients, and we bust our asses to make them stand out. We work organically and are not process-driven. Presentations rarely are. I am not a long-range thinker, never have been. We utilize the most current technologies, but also feel messages are much more important. You also wrote this to me with a cat on your lap, you said, which I thought was you're very talented, right across your arms?
That is actually on the keyboard, so it is
on the
really
keyboard.
Important.
Wow. Yeah. We could just end this. We could end this right now. That's really impressive. Because I did an interview the other day, and we're on Blab doing this, and I was talking to the person, and my cat jumped up and walked across before I could stop him and shut the whole thing down, and it was over.
What?
Anyway.
Maybe your cat's trying to tell you something.
Yeah, exactly. He wants all the attention all the time. So the door is closed and locked. He can't get in. So do you have a favorite quote, Bruce?
I have a lot of favorite quotes, but I think that the most favorite might be from Ashleigh Brilliant, and it's to be sure of hitting the target, shoot first and call what you hit the target. I mean, it's kind of a rule we live by,
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about how you got to us. How did you choose this career?
Well, like I mentioned in my longer version of the bio, I started off as a theater lighting designer in college. Bought a camera to take pictures of my lighting design for my portfolio, and within 6 months, I'd switched my major to photography, and did commercial photography for a while. At the same time, I was doing some rock and roll lighting. We did Tom Petty and Grateful Dead, things like that. Cold Blood, Delta Wires, a bunch of bands that 95% of the people listening probably never heard of, but you may remember. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I pursued my commercial photography business while I was at the same time working on multi-image programming. I used to program AVL equipment for multiple projector shows in the 80s. We worked on Apple projects, a lot of tech projects in the Valley. And through that, I evolved into technical direction because it frankly paid better than programming. And I abandoned the rock and roll stuff because, to be completely honest, I couldn't deal with all the drugs in the business. Not that I was pure by any means. I just decided I wanted to live longer than I expected if I stayed in rock and roll.
Right.
And then one day I was tech directing an event for a pharma company, and there were people in there doing computer graphics. I think they were probably using Aldous Persuasion version 1 or whatever. And they were getting paid obscenely more than I was. And I was looking at them thinking, well, that looks amazingly easy. And they looked amazingly bad at what they did. And I thought, I could do a much better job of that. So I literally that month went out and bought a bunch of computer gear, sat at my house for 3 months and learned it. And I was doing a job for Clorox, and I very purposely packed all my computer gear. And at the time I had 9 Anvil Road cases that probably weighed a combined 300 pounds. I had a big cart that I used to carry the stuff around on. I took it all to an event in New Orleans where I was programming slide projectors. So the computers had nothing to do with the event. So I took the computers backstage, I set them up, and I had completely faked a presentation. And when the guys from Clorox came backstage, I pretended like I was busted working on another project. And they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm just working on another project for somebody else, and I apologize. And I pretended to get back up and be flustered. And they said, "What is that?" And I told them, and I said, "Yeah, we just do it on the computer, and then we project it to the screen." And I said, "If you have changes, you just change it in the computer." And I mean, it was on a job where they were literally spending thousands and thousands overnight to fix a typo on a slide. And so they immediately said, "Well, we want to do that." And so that's how my business started. I jumped in. Clorox was my first client. And, it was when I mentioned I'm not a long-term thinker, I had a 5-year business plan when I started. And in the first 9 months of our business, I had a company called the Dogtown Group. We exceeded the 5-year plan combined. So we did pretty good with that. And so I started Dogtown Group. We were quite successful. I sold the business in 2002, and I started Bodie Group. When I sold Dogtown, I didn't have a non-compete, so I simply took a lot of the people that I really wanted to be with, that I really wanted working with us. I got to walk away from a bunch of old equipment and get paid for it. I started Bodie Group, and I started doing the same thing. And then we had a kind of a transformational moment for me, and that was my brother John was one of our designers. And I had been trying to call him. This is about a year after I started Bodie Group, and he wasn't returning calls, and that was really unusual for him. As you know, when you're freelancing, somebody calls, you call back.
Right.
And so I drove. It was a 2-hour drive to his house. I drove down to his house, and I had found him deceased in his house. And at that point, the realization that of what I wanted to do with my life, there was a lot of things that happened. And this was one of the things that I was telling you about, where this is a personal thing for me, what's going on. My brother was 38. He died of an enlarged heart he didn't know he had. And when that happened, I kind of went through a transformation. I was sitting down and looking at what we were doing. And at the time, we were doing a lot of, somebody come give us a presentation and we'd make it look pretty. And as you know, quite often people give you presentations and you put them up on screen and you're just thinking to yourself, that looks like shit. Mm-hmm. And, or that's all BS, because I'm not going to buy that. And so after going through what I went through with my brother, I decided there were a couple things I did. One is I fired every client I didn't like, which literally was more than half my revenue. It was one of those things where I sat down, I looked down, I cut the revenue. I decided who I was going to fire. I looked at the revenue left from those, and I'm going, I can survive on that. And so that's what we did. And then all the clients that we had left, I basically said, here's how we're going to work. I said, I will never lie to you. I will never pretend that what you're giving me is good if I think it's bad. I said, I will speak up. I will be blunt. I will not waste your time. And I actually expected that most of them would be okay with that, and some of them wouldn't be okay with that. What happened kind of surprised us. That's where our business really started taking off. We just started speaking up. I mean, we were sitting in in 2006, I was sitting in a conference room for a CEO with a major event, and there was probably 20 people in there. We were reviewing a presentation that he was going to give that was a very large presentation. And he had put on the screen this slide that had maybe 40 bullets on it. And when he did, he went to the next slide, and I raised my hand and I said, can you back up? And he said, why? And I said, I wasn't done reading. And, everybody in the room turned to me like, this guy's going to get fired. Yeah. And, our attitude after that, my attitude after that had happened was, I didn't care about the money. The money was less important to me than just being straightforward. And so as it turned out, we didn't get fired, and we'd been working on that CEO's keynotes ever since 2006, and we're continuing to do that now. And so, that's kind of how we approach our business, is we are pretty straightforward at this stuff. And I'm very proud of the fact that we've been able to do that.
It's interesting. I was just talking to somebody else about executives and stuff, and he's a speaker kind of coach guy, and he was saying how we were talking about how crappy a lot of the executives are. And when they come off stage, everyone's all, oh, great job. No one ever says, because their minions are always running around, right? And they never say, man, that sucked. Or, nobody is the honest. So probably what you're doing is the right thing to be doing. I mean, of course, there's going to be those guys, which you've already stated, that are going to be like, I don't want to, they won't like that at all because they like the minion portion, but you don't want to work with those people, right?
Well, we've managed to walk away from those clients. And one of the things that we do as a business is we don't look at any client as the company. I don't look at Cisco, or I don't look at Workday or Salesforce or any of those companies as the company as our client. We always look at this as the people are our client. Mm-hmm. Now, there are specific people inside every company who, we're not going to get along with. And if I were to look at each as the companies as a client, I would be put in a position where would have to work with certain people that I may not want to work with. What we've done is everything right now that we do is focused on the relationship between the specific people we're working for, and that's it. It's very little focused on the company itself. I mean, we're always focused on the message, but from a production standpoint, from a trust and partnership standpoint, it's always with a person.
Very cool. What's been the biggest challenge of doing this whole thing? Having this new work, not new, but having this view on business.
It was getting over the fear of not having any money.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, the biggest, I'd be lying if I didn't say I was really scared when I started firing. I mean, I was firing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of clients. That was scary. It took something like my brother passing away at 38 years old for me to understand that there's so much more important in life than wasting your time being around people that you can't benefit and don't benefit you. Life is much too short to be focused on chasing dollars. Honestly, we've been fortunate in that with everything we've done and the choices we've made, chasing dollars is no longer an issue.
That's awesome. And I kind of was thinking about the firing process. How did that go? Was it the Donald Trump kind of you're fired, or was that like just a blunt conversation?
There was some conversations that didn't go pretty, but pretty much every conversation, I would say, except one particular one, and I won't get into that, but pretty much every conversation we had would go something along the lines of, we're not a good fit for each other. I will help you transition to another vendor. Mm-hmm. In some cases, some of the companies we fired as clients came back to us and worked with us the way that, we told them how we worked. And we're not prima donnas or anything like that. It was simply a matter of I chose how I wanted my business to function, and I was willing to accept the consequences of that. I didn't know what the consequences were at the time, but it worked out for us.
Was there a moment that you had an aha moment that you knew that this was the right thing to do? Was there like a...
Yeah, that one moment in the boardroom where I told the CEO to go back because he wasn't done reading. I mean, I had said, it seems to me that the smarter thing to do would be to put your big idea on screen and put all those bullets down in your downstage monitors. I said, that way you appear to have a vision instead of 40 bullets. And that's when things started changing for us. That particular client has led to a whole lot of other work for us because of the way we approach that.
So if someone is going to work with the Bodie Group, how does it work and what exactly do you do? I mean, if someone's listening, probably should have said that first before we got into this whole conversation, but we build presentations. We build messages that go on screens. There's no rocket science to it or anything like that. The way we do it, there are companies out there that do an excellent job of creating a process and following that process and guiding clients through a process. Some, companies like Duarte. I think Nancy's doing some great stuff. That process and the way they work
didn't work for us. One of the things that, I've been in this industry, basically the event industry, since 1981. And one of the things that really struck me was it's really an organic process creating something like a presentation. Presentations are very personal things to the people giving them. The other thing is most of the people giving them don't have much time to devote to them, which is a problem. And it's a problem we can't always solve. But we have found that whenever we've tried to deal with process, there is the process of breaking down the story and figuring out what we're going to say and how we're going to say it. And, is it compelling, and what can we do to drive points home? But the actual production process, we've always attacked from a fairly organic position where we just simply look at it and we do not give our clients deadlines. We do not give them milestones. They never pay attention to them anyway. I mean, when was the last time you told the CEO, "Hey, I need this from you on this date," and they did that? It just, maybe 1 in 20 might do that, but it just doesn't happen. So we basically just make ourselves available. There's clients are paying for the time that we're available to them. And it's not cheap, but with most of the clients we're dealing with, it's it's all part of the process. You can't guess, you can't tell the CEO when he's going to do something, nor can you guess when he's going to do something. We just judging by experience, we assume that they'll get engaged a week before their presentation. But you know how that is. It could be the day of, it could be 3 weeks before. We never know. And so, that's, it's like I said, it's a very organic process, and we just kind of set ourselves up to go with the flow. We're a small company. I don't have the overhead of much of the larger companies. So it makes it much easier for us to work in that kind of environment.
And are you all in one spot, or is everyone kind of virtual?
Everyone is virtual. I'm in my living room right now.
Yeah.
So,
I'm in my basement right now.
You're in your mom's basement. I know you are.
In my mom's basement, yeah. It's a nice place, though. My wife doesn't like it much, but anyway. So what do you see, like, the future? I mean, it's interesting to hear you talking about, like, before with the slide projectors and everything. It's like, what do you see the future being like with this? How do you see it evolving?
Honestly, I don't have a clue. Like I said, when I started Dogtown, I did a 5-year business plan simply because I had to do it for the bank. When I realized how horribly off I was on my 5-year business plan, I realized how horrible I was at trying to guess the future. My only goal when I started Dogtown and when I started Bodie Group was put groceries in my refrigerator and be able to have a roof over my head. It wasn't anything lofty about it. It was, I just very fortunate that what this company does provides for several families, and that just makes me happy. Yeah.
Well, you seem to have a great life. I watch you on Facebook, and you're off taking pictures and kayaking and enjoying the world, which is nice to see.
Yeah. Try to squeeze as much of that in as I can.
Yeah. And you live in Oregon?
Yeah, I live in Bend, Oregon.
Bend, Oregon, which is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it up there. It's such a pretty place. My wife's boss actually lives up there too, and she rides her motorcycle around in the summertime, I guess, but not now. But Summertime. So what are you struggling with this, with personal or professional? Is there anything you're struggling with right now? You sound like you got it pretty much down, but.
I have no complaints. I have none. It's at the very moment I'm struggling with the oral surgery I had a couple of days ago. It would be really. I have no complaints. I don't know how I could possibly complain about this. I feel so fortunate to have the people working with us that we do. And actually that's something I should address too. Is I don't actually make the presentations. We have a team of about 6 designers that work with us, and the thing that makes our company work right now is that every designer we have, and this was something that we decided to do back in the beginning. Every designer we have is an account director, a consultant, a creative director, a production artist, a presentation artist. They do everything. So when we have clients come to us for a presentation, typically the clients will ask specifically for a designer. They know exactly who they want to work with. So everybody in our company has solid relationships with everybody doing that is all our clients. I do not operate from a base of fear that these people are going to leave and take clients with them. Partly because I really care about these people, and I believe the feeling is mutual, and we treat everybody who works with us like gold. I mean, one thing that you know and I know from years of being in the business and being independent contractors and freelance, whatever, is that you bust your ass for people who take care of you. And the people that just do the minimum, you don't work so hard for.
Right.
And so, I have always made a very solid effort at trying to make sure that everyone who worked for us felt like, we were the best company they ever worked for.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and this is just kind of to see if I'm trying to talk to successful people and see if I can find some kind of, little nuggets that you might do that somebody could glom onto or gleam from. Are those even words? That they could learn from you. So take us through a typical day. Like, do you have like a morning rituals, food, exercise? Is there like, what do you do? Like, do you have special websites that you go to besides Facebook that you like to? You can say Facebook too, but.
No. Honestly, I don't have a ritual. I'm not a morning person. Never have been. Although this morning I had a 7 a.m. meeting in town, so that was. And the guy I had it with is never going to hear the end of that one again. But it's. I have no ritual. I have no. I'm a very unorganized person. I am sloppy. I've got a ton of faults. I have a hard time focusing. From a success standpoint, the one thing that makes us successful, that I contribute to the company, is that I can look at something that's a presentation that somebody's giving, and I can go, that's bullshit. And I'm not afraid to say that. And that is, that's the key to all of this stuff. One of the things that happens with presentations is you get people who are presentation specialists or some of the speaker coaches, the workshops and all that stuff on presentations. It seems much simpler than that to me. and it's always been our attitude that all you have to do to figure out a good presentation is be a decent audience member. And that's it. You sit down and you can look at something and you go, was that compelling to me? If it wasn't compelling, what would have made that more compelling? And that's it. There really isn't that much more. I mean, I've seen some horrible speakers give some great presentations. I mean, I know you have too. I've seen some of the ugliest visuals tell the best message I've ever seen. And at the same time, see some really beautiful images that don't tell me shit. So it's it really is, if you want to figure out a key to success when it comes to presentations and putting out a message, just look at it from where the audience looks at it.
Very cool. What'd you want to be as a kid?
I wanted to be a spotlight operator in the ice follies. I'm dead serious.
That is great. And you went to college to do that. I mean, you said you were a lighting guy. You were a lighting guy.
Yeah. I
never made it to the ice follies?
I didn't do ice follies, but I was a very good spotlight operator. I just that changed, and then honestly, after that, I had my goals were the photography. I wanted to be a fashion photographer, and I was doing that for a while, and then I realized how crazy the people were in that business that I just couldn't do it anymore. So I didn't do that. And I worked some with another photographer. We worked on a lot of corporate collateral work through the 80s. And that was fun. And just evolved from there.
You did the fashion, the rock and roll, and you did it all. So what book do you gift others? And why'd you like that book?
I don't. Excuse me. Kill that. I don't gift a lot of books, but one of the books that I gave to pretty much all our clients was a book from a friend of mine, Gar Reynolds. Has a book called Presentation Zen, talking about simplicity and what it can bring to a presentation. And I, when that book came out, I bought many dozens of copies and I gave them out to all of our clients. I just, Gar's a great guy, had a really good way of putting that message across in the book. I think a lot of what we see in the presentation world right now was driven by that book. And really pleased that he did that, because it suddenly added some validation to the presentation world on simplification.
Yeah, I have that here. Everybody has that book. I mean, that's such a great book. And how do you know him? Did you meet him before this book stuff, or did you?
No, I knew the book first, and then I've met him on a couple events. And he's an Oregon guy. He lives in Japan now, but we've talked a couple of times. He's actually contemplating looking to move back this way. So,
do you listen to any podcasts?
Oh yeah. My absolute favorite is Hardcore History.
Yes. It's funny I asked this question and so many people would say that. That's funny.
Yeah, that and the same guy, Don Carlin, does Common Sense, which is kind of a nonpartisan political view of the world. And I pretty much everything he's done so far, I've really just soaked up. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you ever have a nickname?
No. I mean, when I was a kid, I was Bruce the Goose. but that was I grew up on an army base, and that was the colonel's nickname for me, but it didn't stick.
Where did the name Bodie Group come from?
There's a ghost town in the Sierras, just north of Mono Lake, called Bodie, California, and it's if you haven't been there, it's a magical place. It's it's the remnants of a town that used to have 10,000 people in it, and in the 20s, they pretty much, over the course of maybe from 1900 to 1920, they all packed up and left. And since it was so desolate out there, there was a lot of stuff left, like the general stores filled with product. There's kitchen sinks filled with dishes. It's an amazing place. It really is. And it's now a state park. And they keep it in what they call a state of arrested decay. And I just, I like the name. I love the town. And I also chose that name because it's mysterious. You wouldn't know by the name what it is the company does.
Interesting.
It gives us the freedom to change things around.
Oh, do you listen to music when you work?
On occasion. I mean, one of my favorite bands, I'm actually kind of wearing out my my listening enjoyment because I've been listening to so much, is a band called London Grammar.
London Grammar.
Yeah, if you haven't heard them.
No, I haven't. I will check it out. And is that a Spotify channel that you listen to, or Pandora, or how do you listen to music?
I don't listen to Spotify. I don't listen to Pandora. It's generally just iTunes, or we stream KCSM and KCRW at home most of the time.
Do you have a favorite documentary or movie?
Actually, there's a couple, but the one that I just saw, one that I just thought was really surprising to me, because I never really was a huge Glen Campbell fan. Mm-hmm. And I just saw the Glen Campbell documentary on Netflix, and it blew me away. And I suddenly gave me a newfound respect for Glen Campbell, and I figured any documentary that can do that for me had to be pretty good. So
that's pretty cool. And you said there's another one, or that's it?
There's a couple, but I mean, honestly, I off the top of my head, I can't remember a lot of them. I love a lot of music documentaries, like the Muscle Shoals, 20 Feet to Stardom, things like that.
Very cool. Let's get on to these ones here. Okay, so what's the best advice you've ever received?
It would have to be something my mom used to tell me when I'd get upset. And you'd have to know my mom to understand the humor in this, but she always used to say, "Bruce, don't worry about it. You're going to be dust in a few years."
Nice. That's great.
So, and honestly, I that's probably it.
Very cool. Do you have something that's working for you right now, like an app or a vitamin or an exercise program or a work hack or something that's really working for you right now?
No.
What do you guys use to talk to each other? Do you use just email when you when
we do a lot of email. We do a lot of WebEx. I rarely do FaceTime. We rarely do video chat. WebEx is a great tool. I mean, we use WebEx a lot. But I mean, quite often it's The bulk of the time, it's the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not deeply entrenched into technology, and I'm finding as I get older, I'm becoming less and less entrenched. I'm finding the older I get, the more my phone is on silent.
Yeah, I'm getting the same way. My new work hack is I'm taking fish oil because I can't remember anything. And I'm not sure if it's working. I can't remember if it's working or not.
I'm not going to be able to remember. What was that he said he took?
So do you go to any events that you like to go to? Like, is there an event that you look forward to in music? It could be a festival. It could be...
after doing rock and roll, I got burned out on rock shows. Doing corporate events, I do not go to corporate events. I don't. Even now, the ones we do, I go to some of them occasionally, but most of the time, our participation ends when the event starts. We're doing one that I just had meetings for this morning where we're sending some people to Orlando just simply as support. But it's rare that I go in events. You know how this business is. I went from doing 20 years of 50 to 100,000 miles a year in frequent flyer miles to last year, I think I did maybe 2,000 miles total. Mm-hmm. Very proud of that, actually. So,
yeah. It's hard. It's a very hard way to live, constantly traveling. I totally am a home body. Like, I don't like going places at all.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm very jealous of your pizza oven.
Yeah, it's really great. You should build one. I built it. It's freaking awesome. Love it. We just fired it up this weekend, and we had some people over and watched the Warriors game, and it was a lot of fun. I just can never get the dough right. I'm just working on that dough. That's the whole thing. I had a lot of pressure this time too. I had a pressure this time, thin, real thin. I had pressure because we have new neighbors, and they came. It was our neighbors we invited over, and she's a chef, and she writes like a blog, and she has written books and stuff. And that was just a lot of pressure having her come over. And then she said, "Oh, it's really great." And I thought, does she really mean that? I don't know. What is she going to say? I had her over.
I'm sure she didn't mean that. She's just saying shit.
She was totally just saying that. Yeah. Anyway, everybody looked like they had a good time, but thank you for saying that. And we should build one at your house. It's fun. I enjoyed building it. What's the coolest new kind of thing you've seen or you're excited about? You talk about photography and stuff. I always see you posting stuff about this new lens or something.
To address the photography, in 1992, I completely got out of the commercial photography business. I walked away from it, and then in 2009, we did a big job for Yahoo that ended up being literally 5 times the size of the job we estimated it to be. It just kept growing, and it would happen to come at the end of the year. And at the end of the year, I needed to spend some money because it was, it's basically fire sale and tax time, And so I decided, what the heck, I'll buy a bunch of gear. So I bought a bunch of photography gear. And I hadn't really touched a camera in, at that point, 17 years. So I bought a bunch of Nikon gear, a bunch of lenses, and started taking pictures, and I sucked. I really sucked at it. And I was really upset by that. So I trying to figure out what the problem was. And I got into film because I remembered when I shot film, there was a lot more involved in the process. So I got into film. I became a better photographer. And over time, I actually starting to feel like I'm starting to get some of my chops back photographically. That said, the technology right now is mind-boggling. I'm using some Sony digital cameras. One of them has a ISO capability up to 409,000 ISO. And the native ISO is up to 102,000. And I literally can, on the last flight I had from San Francisco up to Bend, I was flying, it was midnight. I was looking out the window of the plane and I see a white blob off to my left. And I thought it might be Mount Shasta. I put the camera up to my eye and it was like somebody turned on the lights outside. And I could see everything. And because it's got an electronic viewfinder, it's a what you see is what you get. So I pushed the button and I have a gorgeous picture of Mount Shasta at night from a plane. And this is midnight. This isn't even close to sunset. And
wow.
And there I see detail. I have shadow detail. The capability of this stuff is just mind-boggling. I have you can shoot star shots handheld out a plane window at night and get relatively sharp images. It's really, that technology is changing. It really is changing everything we see.
Very cool. All right, so this is the last question. If you woke up, if you could talk to the high school senior you, what would you tell yourself?
Well, the high school senior me probably wouldn't have listened to me. I wasn't the best in high school, but I don't know if I would tell myself anything because I got to tell you, I'm so happy with the way my life has turned out and what's going on that I wouldn't want to do anything that would have screwed this up. Seriously, I made a lot of mistakes, and like I said, in my short bio, something went horribly wrong, and fortunately, something went horribly wrong, and I ended up here. And
very cool.
That's definitely how I view it.
Very cool. All right, Bruce, thank you so much. How can people get a hold of you if they needed to get a hold of you?
Well, our business is not in search of new clients, so we don't go out. We do take new clients, but we don't go out actively looking, and that can be made very apparent by looking at our website. Our website is www.bodiegroup.com, BODIE group.com. The only thing on that site is how to contact us. It's basically a form contact. My email is bruce@bodiegroup.com. That's a great way to get a hold of me. But, just go to bodiegroup.com and that'll get you to the contact info. And you can just drop me a note. I'd be glad to answer it. Generally, when it comes to new clients, we really prefer to have the recommendation of old clients because we work quite a bit differently than most companies.
Very cool. All right, Bruce. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Thanks. It was fun.
And hopefully we can talk to you again, find out what other exciting things you got going on.
Well, you're going to have to come visit.
Yes, for sure. Okay. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
We appreciate and thank you for listening to the Meetings Podcast. Please email with any questions or comments to meetingspodcast@gmail.com. Meetings Podcast is sponsored by IMEX America, America's worldwide exhibition for incentive travel, meetings, and events. The Meetings Podcast theme music is brought to you by the Delgado Brothers, which can be found at delgadobrothers.com.